Hi, I'm Vicki Landon, and welcome to another edition of Artist Spotlight. I'm here with artist Robert Shetterly, whose work is hanging here in the atrium. Tell us a little bit about this portrait series about Americans who tell the truth.
Thanks, Vicki. It's so nice to be here. I'm really delighted that they're hanging in a place like this where lots of people can see them. This is what I like to call democratic art. It's meant for everybody, especially all Americans, to see. I began this series actually reluctantly. I was not a portrait painter. I had never painted a portrait in my life. I was a surrealist, and I'm a self-taught artist. And so I had to teach myself how to paint portraits. But I was driven to because I'm sure a lot of people who see this or hear it will remember the run-up to the Iraq War, and that we were actually being lied to by our government about why we needed to go to war. All that fear and propaganda and manipulation. And I was so distressed, so upset about another war which didn't need to be fought. And I thought, what can I do? You know, one, what can I do as an artist? Because that's the thing I do best. You know, that's where my real voice is. But also, what can I do that doesn't show that I'm just an angry, grieving person, that actually takes that energy and tries to do something positive with it. And what I decided finally after several months was to start surrounding myself with Americans that made me feel good about this country rather than rant about the ones that I didn't approve of. And the very first painting I painted.
Do you remember who your first portrait was?
Absolutely. No, it was incredibly important for me. I painted the great poet Walt Whitman. And the reason I painted him is because he is probably as much as anyone ever in the history of this country understood what small d democracy is. And not just that all people are created equal, that all life is created equal. And that unless we take care of all that other life, all the plants and animals, we're not taking care of ourselves. That their success is our success. And we have to care for the entire body of life on this planet.
That's fantastic. How many portraits are you up to now for this project?
My goal was to paint 50. I never thought I'd actually paint 50 portraits because I hadn't painted portraits, but they're now, I think, around 280.
280! Are you still going, or is this project come to a
I'm
completion?
still going. It's an obsessive compulsive disorder. Yes, when I get depressed about the urgency of the problems in the world and how critical they are, and sometimes how governments are failing to deal with these issues, what I do is find another story, another person, and I get lifted up by their courage. And I paint their portrait, and then we often do an unveiling of it and bring a lot of people in to see who this is and why they're important and what kind. We call these models of courageous citizenship. So we go into schools and say, you know, here kids are people who stood up against some kind of injustice. They had perseverance and courage and compassion, and they actually changed things, you know, and that's what they're all about.
It has to be somewhat therapeutic for you to paint them, but then also therapeutic to engage with the art and see the public engaging with the art, right?
Completely. I mean, I often say that it began as a therapy project. I mean, I assumed I'd have 20 paintings in my basement. Frederick Douglass, Harriet Tubman, Susan B. Anthony, they'd all be in my basement. Nobody would ever see them. I would go down and talk to them once in a while and feel better. Instead, I showed them in a little sandwich shop in Maine, and the reaction was amazing. This is back in 2002. So 20
years and 200 plus portraits later.
Yeah.
Have you found it to be a difficult leap coming from a surrealist background and approach? Like, are your mediums different? Are your approaches to painting different? Tell me a little bit about the process, the technical process behind the work.
The technical process is identical. I love to paint on wood. These are painted on wooden panels. I paint a lot with my fingers. I always did that. I like to manipulate the paint to get the kinds of transparencies and colors that I want. That's the same, although with a portrait that becomes a little different because it becomes much more intimate. You know, I'm painting a person's face, and it's like sculpting. I've got my hands all over them, you know, with the fingers moving the paint around. But the intention is so different. As a surrealist, I was about mystery and ambiguity, saying, here's something curious. Use your imagination and your experience to find a way into this and see what you can find there. I'm not going to tell you anything other than this curious image, you know. But these...
Not the case.
No, not the case at all. These are, you know, based in historical moments, and they are, you know, inviting people, you know, not just to look them in the face and look into their eyes, which I try to catch the integrity and the courage of people, but also read what they said. Each painting has a quote on it that I think is like a punch in the solar plexus that suggests, you look at them and then you read the quote and you say, oh, so that's what this person believes. What does that mean about me? Should I do something? I want people to ask those kinds of questions when they look at these paintings.
Great. Well, the collection continues to grow. Can you give us a little sneak peek onto what portraits might be coming next or soon?
Well, let me just tell you the most recent one I painted, and I don't know, some people who see this might remember a woman named Julia Butterfly Hill, who was attempting to save old growth forests in the late 90s back in Northern California. And she climbed up in this enormous redwood tree, which was due for, part of it was going to be a clear cut by Pacific Lumber Company. And she stayed in that tree on a platform 180 feet off the ground for 2 years and 8 days and didn't come down until the CEO of Pacific Lumber said, you win. We're not going to cut the tree, we're going to save some of this forest.
2 years and 8 days.
And the point there, for me, which is the point of so many of these portraits, is how does a single person, sometimes a small group, get the power to fight off a government or an enormous corporate power that wants to do something that they think is going to be dangerous or deleterious to our environment or to our communities? How do you get the power to do that? And sometimes it's that kind of courageous perseverance which actually ends up giving a person more power than a corporation. And she did it,
Well, I know these subjects continue to inspire you, and they continue to inspire everybody who sees them. So thank you so much for allowing to share a good portion of them with us here in Orange County. We're really grateful.
I'm so grateful to you. They don't get shown in public places like this quite as much as they do in colleges and places like that. So I'm glad that they get a different kind of audience here, which is the audience I actually want to reach.
Yeah. Great. Well, again, thank you so much for being here, and thank you for your time.
Oh, thanks. It's wonderful to talk with you. Thanks.
Thank you very much, and we'll see you on the next edition of Artist Spotlight.